Let me take this opportunity to give you a short update of our work that's currently going on in the Philippines. When I was there in August of 2012, we began the Bible Expositor Seminary. We currently have 11 students, and we've had to cap it at 11 students. They are going through their Master's of Divinity program. At this point in time, as of February 2013, they are working through the Systematic Theology 1. This lecture series is based upon the work of Wayne Grudem. My plan at this point is to relocate to the Philippines mid-2013. While I was there in 2012, I realized that the theological training that they're getting is great. The reading program that they're going through is fantastic, but this isn't enough. While I was there, it seemed like constantly I was having men come up to me and ask me for mentoring in specific areas. Will you mentor us in the area of street preaching? Will you mentor us in sermon preparation? Will you mentor us in prayer? Will you come and instruct the church on how to do evangelism? So I saw that there's a need for some hands-on discipleship, hands-on mentoring, hands-on training, and that simply just can't happen here in the United States. So when we relocate there, God willing, this year, I'm going to be dividing my time in certain areas. Of course, I will be directly overseeing the Bible Expositor Seminary. This means that we're going to be meeting at least once a month with the 11 pastors who are in the seminary. We're going to be going through the curricula with them. We're going to be making myself available to answer their questions. I'll also be personally involved in mentoring men while we're there. Our goal is to open up that mentoring program maybe even wider than the 11 pastors. There's already Christ Disciple Bible Church that's meeting. This is a fledgling church that has grown out of the ministry of Pastor Ben and Pastor Vol through evangelism. So our goal will be to come alongside that church, maybe be able to help them financially to find a place to worship. One of the problems they're continually having is finding a permanent place of worship. If we can establish a permanent place of worship that we can rent on a monthly basis, that then will give us a headquarters which we can operate all ministry out of. The Bible Expository Seminary, students can meet there. Of course, the church can meet there. There's also some talk in place to have some other ministries that can operate out of that building. For example, a child tutoring program that will be free tutoring, possibly a music teaching program, maybe even being able to take on and house an intern at the church that can actually be there to do work at the church, but while he's there being mentored and being trained to be sent out as a pastor or a church planner himself. Our other area of focus, if the Lord will meet our needs, anything we have over our needs will roll into what we're going to call a self-sufficiency fund. One of the problems there is a problem almost everywhere with missions and ministry. When you're in a very depressed culture, economically depressed, it's hard to split your time between ministry and earning a living. So what this self-sufficiency fund will do is provide a seed fund money for pastors that they can use it to buy, for example, livestock or seed, something that they can grow and develop on their own. Once it's grown and developed fully, they can sell that product, repay the seed money back to the fund so it can be loaned out again, and keep the profits. And the idea is to keep doing this over and over again until we get them to a point to where they are able to use their own profits from the seed money to purchase the next year's, and just on and on again until it gets them to the point where they're able to stand up financially on their own. And in this way, we're not making them dependent upon outside sources, that they become self-sufficient. We have a relocation budget of $20,000. A portion of that, of course, will be our flight over there. That's going to be probably over $3,000. We'll take another $3,000 or so and set back as an emergency fund in the event that something were to happen and we had to leave the country. We would have a way to get back into the United States. The rest of the money will be used to set us up a household. We're going to have to find a place to rent to live in, get electricity, gas if we are able to get gas. Also internet, and the internet will be there in order that we can communicate back and forth with the churches here, keep them up to date, and be able to also for me to be accountable to our supporters here in the United States. Vehicles, we're going to have to acquire a vehicle. Our goal is to purchase a motorcycle, kind of like a scooter. Everyone in the city uses a scooter because the public transportation is very slow. It's very cheap, but it's not always reliable. It takes a lot of time to get from one place to another because of the the number of people that are using public transportation. Driving a car in the city is very hard. The city is crowded. There's a lot of traffic. It takes a lot of time to drive a car. For example, when I was there in Cagayan de Oro this last year, there is not one stop sign. There is not one stop signal. Only on one day did I see a traffic cop out, and it was on a day that was during a festival. So it's hard to get around in a car. The motorcycle is cheap, easy form of transportation for daily transportation needs. Also, we will acquire some type of car or SUV or something that has multiple seating. And in this way, we can take the family as well as pick up other families and take them to the church. And the vehicle kind of becomes a way of ministering in the event that we need to get to Bukidnon and minister to the pastors up there, or we need to bring someone back to the city for the hospital. Just having a car on hand, even if we don't use it every day, would be a very important part of the ministry. We'll also use part of that $20,000 relocation fee to pay a deposit to rent a building. That will serve as the headquarters of the church and the church plant and the ministries that will operate out of that. Part of that fund will also be able to help relocate our intern. We've chosen a young man to come and intern at the church, and we'd like to be able to help set him up. That will consume the vast majority of those funds. Our monthly budget will be about $2,000 a month. We're shooting for $2,000. That $2,000 will meet all our basic physical needs: our housing, gasoline, food, electricity, internet. Also, that will allow us to pay the monthly rent on the church. When we get to the point that the church can begin to stand on itself, we'll take those funds that are left over from the $20,000 and start looking at planning another church. I have my eye on a place called Indahong, so we can use those funds if we have any discretionary funds left to just expand the ministry. I know some of you had asked me about the political situation and what it would be like living in Mindanao in light of some of the recent events. If you're familiar with Mindanao, Mindanao is the southernmost island in the Philippines. It's a large island on the very bottom of the chain. To the western side in Mindanao, you have the Muslim separatists. These are those who have decided a Muslim state. They want to completely break away from the government. There's a tenuous agreement at place right now between the Muslim separatists and the local government. In January of 2013, Voice of the Martyrs upgraded the island of Mindanao, not the entire Philippines, but just the island of Mindanao, what they call a hostile environment. The reason why they're saying it's a hostile environment because Muslim separatists have closed 4 house churches this past year. And the method that they use to close a house church is that they will go in and kill the pastor and kill the lay leaders. That shuts down the church. So the government itself is not opposed to Christianity. It's a free government in that respect, but it's considered a hostile region because also the government is not able to protect the Christians from direct persecution. And in this case, the persecution is coming from the Muslim separatists. Just a few days ago, I don't know if you're following the news, but those of you who have been following the news in the Philippines and have been asking about this, there was an attack by the National People's Army. This is part of the National Democratic Front. Locally, they just call them rebels. We know them as being Maoist Communists. They are opposed to democracy. They are opposed to anything that appeals Western. They are opposed to the United States. What they did is they went into a place called Camp Phillips. Camp Phillips is a beautiful community. I've been there. I've visited there. And there's a Del Monte plantation there. The local people love the Del Monte plantation because Del Monte brought them jobs. Del Monte brought electricity. They brought water. They really took a place that's out in the hinterlands and made it into a really lovely community that brought in schools, that brought in infrastructure, that brought in businesses. So the Del Monte plantation has been a real blessing. But of course the Maoist Communists, the National People's Army, are opposed to this because it's Western and it's capitalist. So they went recently onto the Del Monte plantation. The latest figures that I have from the locals there, I'm not really going by the news because the news reports are a little sketchy, but the locals say that at least 4 guards were killed. The rebels took their firearms, and if I'm not mistaken, according to the locals, and this is not what's being reported in the news, but there's also some kidnapping. So this puts an interesting spin on our living in Mindanao. It's really interesting because there's a big giant pineapple right there in front of the Del Monte plantation at Camp Phillips, and I stood in front of that very pineapple and had my picture made. Now it's been knocked over. Buildings have been broken into and ransacked. They burnt some transportation trucks on the outside. So just ask your prayers for us as we get ready to move to Mindanao. Not at all am I concerned for our safety. We're just going to be wise and we're going to trust the Lord. But we really do need your prayers.